Good morning. Good day, actually, and welcome to the Ecumenical Church of the Occitanie. Today I'm speaking to you from the little village of La Bastide de Verre, which was the home to the artist Henri Martin, who lived here, and in the 1920s painted the scene behind me, the little bridge and the church, and it gave him a lot of commercial success. But for today, there's been a lot of talk about forgiveness over the past week, as the former Archbishop of Canterbury talked of forgiving a prolific child abuser. Now, forgiveness is a central tenet in our faith and embedded in the Lord's Prayer. So when he was asked the question, he was really between a rock and a hard place. His situation compounded by the Church's teaching that in his role, he was able to pass on the absolution from God. In any case, we must draw attention to the fact that forgiveness does not exclude justice for victims. But all this chatter about it brought me to thinking about Jesus at the darkest moment of his life, when he was in pain and agony, and how he asked God to forgive those who were abusing him. I bring you this verse from Luke 23, from the New International Version. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." I want to address the apparent ignorance clause Jesus is invoking, and I'm wondering if it provides a get-out-of-jail-free card. It reminds me of the old expression, "they don't know any better," meaning bad behaviour was someone else's responsibility. I'm thinking of a 10-year-old lad who on Monday mornings at school would go on a rampage, kicking, punching anything or anyone in his path. His abusive, violent father had been home at weekends, and his behaviour was a reflection of what had gone on there. So this lad's behaviour was because he didn't know any better. Consider then the Roman authorities. How could they know they were executing the Son of God? They were ignorant of the teachings of Judaism and had a job to do keeping control of a volatile region. They didn't know what they were doing. The religious authorities were so desperate to hang on to power and to protect an institution that they were literally blinded to the light. So they didn't know what they were doing. And the general population, pulled between the two conflicting forces, they didn't stand a chance. Next, I want us to focus on Jesus and his clearly having a great love for the people. As he breathes his last in agony on the cross, he intercedes with the Father on their behalf. But we don't know the outcome of that, remember. Nevertheless, Jesus was fulfilling his own teachings of loving enemies, blessing those who cursed him, and doing good to those who hated him, and praying for those who spitefully used him and persecuted him. But this was more than a mantra for Jesus. This, I suggest, was heart-wrenching. The only way I can describe the reach of this deep love is like this. Think of the last terrible example of a child murdering a child on our city streets. And after you wept for the victim and their loved ones, did you conjure in your mind the parent of the child who carried out the most terrible of crimes? A deep primeval surge of fear and loathing must wrench their hearts in two, and yet love fills the wound despite everything. They cannot stop the love for their child pouring out. I believe that is an image of God's love for humankind. All through his ministry, Jesus demonstrates love for his fellow people. He treated everyone with compassion, healing them physically and spiritually. His request for forgiveness for the very people who had not recognized their sins demonstrates a level of mercy beyond human understanding. It is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is about Jesus and his relationship with the Father. It is a reminder of the mercy of God. Mercy whereby God, out of his loving kindness, withholds punishment that is rightly deserved in the face of wrongdoing. The refrain in Psalm 136 comes to mind. His mercy endures forever. And that is repeated 26 times. I've always been drawn to the words of a hymn writer back in the 19th century. An English theologian, Frederick Faber, wrote this hymn that you may well know. I'll leave you with some of the words. There's a wideness in God's mercy like the wideness of the sea. There's a kindness in his justice which is more than liberty. Going on with, but we make his love too narrow by false limits of our own, and we magnify his strictness with a zeal he will not own. And finally, for the love of God is broader than the scope of the human mind, and the heart of the eternal is most wonderfully kind. Amen to that.